We are excited to have you here to celebrate with us, what we have accomplished as partners across the K-12, community college, and university system, and as people in this room who have taken seriously our mission for student success. I'll be back later to talk, so I won't do much talking now. What I want to do is really introduce our mayor. Now, you know the special thing about our mayor. Actually, there's a million special things about our mayor. He's been, setting the city on fire in the region. Everybody's noticing. Dr. Robert Garcia, but we think of him as our mayor, don't we? Because he's got 2 degrees from the California State University, Long Beach, and recently elected to be mayor of the great city of Long Beach, one of the most diverse, one of the largest, and most economically vibrant cities in the whole country. And what I appreciate about him, especially, of course, among the many things he does, is that he's the best publicist for Cal State Long Beach you can imagine. Every place I go, he's saying good things about Cal State Long Beach and talking about the importance of education to our youth and really focusing on supporting our teachers in our K-12 system. And he has read the research and knows that preschool education is one of the best ways to get long-standing, important results for children in terms of their achievement and their eventual readiness for university. So thank you, Mayor, for being our education mayor, as well as our arts mayor, our economic mayor, and so many other things. And I'd like to invite you to the stage to say more nice things about us, I hope, while you're here.
Well, good morning. And it's always good to be at Cal State Long Beach because it's like coming home. So I love being here. And anytime that I'm here or get an invitation, I always try to come by and say hi. And it's obviously also good to see so many friends and people that I've known for my 20 plus years in the city of Long Beach, of which Cal State Long Beach was my very first address. So my very first address was the dorms at Cal State Long Beach in Parkside, Q Building. And I never left. And so I clearly I owe my really entire development, my experience, the ability to support my family, because I had great faculty and teachers that believed in me, and a college that was supported, and that believe that an immigrant kid from another country could have as much access or as much support as anybody else. And I think that's what makes Cal State Long Beach, for me, so special, is that I think it's a great equalizer for a lot of people, and so it certainly was for me. I'm here, obviously, to join you guys in your celebration today, which we couldn't be more proud of, and I see also some of our Long Beach City College folks that are here as well, which is great. But I wanted to say just a few brief things. The first is, I want to just echo what the president said, and she, by the way, is doing a great job of going around this city and across the state to represent this university. And it's been quite impressive to see. It's refreshing to have someone, I think, lead with their heart and really have, I think, the faculty and the students really close to her heart, and I want to thank her for doing that. But I also want to say that I also am here because I am your biggest cheerleader out there, as much as I can be. I believe it's my job to represent my alma mater and represent a place that I believe to be one of the most important things we have in the city. The fact that we have a university that gets more applications than anywhere else in the state of California from the Cal State system, and one of the top in the country, is a point of pride. But with that is this whole idea that and I love this message that's been going around, that what's this idea, what's this whole concept of being an elite university about? And it really is about serving everyone. And so I want to commend you for all of that. I also want to say that Long Beach, the city, is incredibly proud of your hard work. We are so proud that you continue to gain such recognition from not just the local groups and some of the local folks, but across the country. I know that we're here to celebrate this great award that you've received for innovation in student success and college completion. And what's great about this is it just adds to the recognition that you're all receiving nationally. I know this was a very prestigious process. Obviously, the selection process was extensive. And for us, it's great to know that Cal State Long Beach continues to get this national recognition. Because I always remind people that the more that you all succeed and the more that Cal State Long Beach receives recognitions like this one, the better it is for the city of Long Beach. We get that same recognition because we're all part of the same family. So every award that you all get is an award for the city of Long Beach, and that's the way that we interpret it as well. I know that the award criteria for this award were intense, and I'll name a few. The institution had to demonstrate remarkable progress and achievement in student retention and graduation. The progress had to be served as a benchmark for institutional success, and that the institution had to provide concrete examples for other institutions to adapt and to use on their campuses. What was also, what I was reading a little bit this morning, is that the AASCU chose Cal State Long Beach also to serve as a national model for the way student success can really reflect a model of teaching and a model of interaction between faculty, students, administration, and staff. And so I want to just join you in celebrating. And I'm here just to say thank you, because you all make the city of Long Beach look really good. And absolutely, you make the city of Long Beach look really good. I always think that there's nothing more that in our city that promotes the city, the city as a whole, than all of you, because having that word Long Beach right after California State University promotes us on the global stage. And every time someone reads a journal article by a faculty member, or is reading a paper that's been proposed at a conference, or is looking at students that are promoting their work somewhere across the globe or across the country, or students that are moving and talking about the great experience that they had as an alum, whether they're in New York or DC or somewhere across the world, and they say the word Long Beach and they talk about their experience, that's all reflective of our city. And so that's something that I think we want to promote and continue to support. So congratulations, and it's just good to be here for a few minutes with you this morning. Go Beach!
How about another round of applause for Robert Garcia, the Education Mayor? Now, my job is to introduce the keynote, but before I do that, I want to just make a few recognitions. Robert made mention of and Jane made mention of our partnership. So we're delighted to be joined this morning by a number of people from both Long Beach City College and Long Beach Unified. Greg Peterson, I saw come in. Terry Long, my counterpart at LBCC, Eva Bragg is here as well. And from Long Beach Unified, I think Chris is expected. He hasn't made it yet, but Pam Secchi, Jill Baker, Tiffany Brown, and Ruth Ashley. Could we give them a round of appreciation? I also want to just take a minute to acknowledge the two other vice presidents who have played a wonderful role in the progress we're making here. I introduced Mary a moment ago to Katie, and I said, this is the best CFO in the world because she can give my speeches about student success. That's an amazing thing. Would you give a round of applause to Mary Stevens? And for our new Vice President, Carmen Taylor, who brings a tremendous commitment and awareness and energy to the student success effort. We're happy to have her on our team, and thank you for being here. Give her a round of applause, too, if you would be kind enough to do that. Other surprise introductions, but I'm going to save them for a little later in the program because I'm going to put them in a historic context, and they're looking at me so they know who they are. So don't feel that I have forgotten you, because I haven't, but we'll come back to you. So now, I've known Katie Haycock for about 20 years, I think, because back in the 90s when I was kind of involved in K-12 things, I used to go to Washington, D.C. in the cold of November to the Ed Trust conferences and learned a lot there. And then she branched out into higher ed in the 2000s, I think. I don't know all the details of that, but there's probably, I was thinking about this, and I'm sure this is an arguable point, but I can't think of any private individual who has had a greater impact both on K-12 and on higher ed. She really nurtured and fostered the K-12 collaboration movement in the 90s and inspired many partnerships, shared best practices across the country, including Long Beach was inspired by that and recognized by that. I'm not sure if we'd have sustained the partnership that we developed at that time during some difficult economic times without the nurturing and the role models and so on at the K-12 level. And then in the 2000s, she broke open the little secret about higher education completion by putting college results online, taking the IPEDS data that had been sequestered behind firewalls and such in the Department of Education and made those accessible in a public database. And suddenly you've got something called a college completion movement that is asking universities why their graduation rates are as they are. And now we've got a president focusing on college completion. And you'll see in our story today some of the benefits to students that have resulted from that. So it's hard for me to think of a private individual who has had a greater impact on United States higher education. And I hope those of you who are not previously acquainted with her work realize that it's going to be a tremendous privilege for us to hear from her. And she's flying out on like 24-hour basis. Apparently this is what native Californians who are sequestered in Washington, D.C. will do for a little warm weather. That's the best I can come because her turnaround on this is amazing. But she's really very generously agreed to spend some time with us this morning. So please join me in offering a Cal State Long Beach welcome to a remarkable person, Katie Haycock.
So thank you, Dave, for that way too generous introduction. And let me be clear here. It's not me who has created any of this. It's people like Dave and the rest of you and you folks at Long Beach City College who are doing some amazing stuff who've created this movement. It's just I just have this very cool job that lets me go around the country and talk about the fabulous things that you're doing and try to get others to head in the same direction. So thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to be away from Washington, even if for only 24 hours. I do not know whether I was more delighted to leave Congress, don't get me started on that, or more delighted to leave our 10-degree temperatures. But I do appreciate this opportunity to be back here, home in Southern California, not so far from where I grew up across the freeway. So my job today is both to help you celebrate your enormous accomplishments so far, but also to help you think about the distance that you still have ahead. And I want to do that, as I always do, by walking you through a whole bunch of data that will help us just think together about what happens to different groups of students as they take the journey through our system, and what we can do differently to make sure that the results at the end of the line look more like what it did at the start, right? And just one quick word about the data before I begin, and that is I'm going to go way too fast for the numbers geeks in the audience who love to write the numbers down. So just know in advance that all of what I'm about to show you, we will park on our website within a day or two. So for you numbers fanatics, you'll have that later on to take a look at. Before I get started on the numbers, though, I want to talk a little bit about why what you do is so hugely important. All of you certainly know that as Americans, we tell each other in the world two very important stories about who we are as a country. The first one, of course, is that we're the land of opportunity, that whether your parents were born in a village in India or in the hollers of Western Kentucky, we are the place, above all others, where if you work hard, you can become anything you want to be. So we're the land of opportunity. The second story that we tell each other in the world is one of constant intergenerational improvement, that each generation of American families, through hard work and savings, can assure its children a better education and, in fact, a better life. Those stories, as you know, are very powerful, and they are pervasive in how we both think about and talk about ourselves as a country. And those stories have animated the hopes and dreams of millions of Americans here at home, and of course, drawn millions of others to our shores. Now, my grandparents, like many of yours, were among those. My mother's grandmother came here from Germany at age 16 with her 17-year-old sister, drawn by the promise of opportunity, and drawn all the way to California by the promise of seeing what oranges look like growing on trees. But my great-grandmother cleaned houses for a living. But she did that in the belief that if she worked hard, her children would have more opportunities than they would if she'd stayed back home in Germany. My father's mother came here also at age 16 from Mexico for exactly the same reason, in the belief that if she worked hard, that her children would have better education and better life opportunities than if she stayed home in Mexico. Now, these folks, our country was actually built on the hard work of people like them. And they knew, of course, that America was often intolerant of people who looked like them or who struggled with English like them. And they knew that that American dream was, at best, a kind of work in progress. But as you know, they were proud, oh so proud of the country they were building. We were the first in the world to build to have universal high school. We were the first to build public universities. We were the first in the world to build public community colleges. We were the first in the world to broadly expand access to college, first through the GI Bill and then through the Pell Grants. And over time, decade by decade by decade, education levels grew upwards and opportunities grew outwards. Now, all of you know what I know, and that is progress was often painfully slow for some groups of Americans, especially people of color. But here, too, education levels moved upward, decade by decade, and opportunities grew outward. Until about 1980, when economic inequality, started eroding these gains all of a sudden. In recent years, as you know, most of the economic gains in this country have gone to those at the top of the economic ladder. Meanwhile, those at the bottom of the economic ladder have often gone backwards. Now, in fact, instead of being among the most equal nations on earth, we're actually one of the most unequal nations on earth, with the third greatest income inequality of any developed country. And those trends have been exacerbated by the recent economic challenges. In particular, when you look at family wealth, what you see now is that the median wealth of white families is now 20 times that of black families in America and 18 times that of Latinos. Importantly, though, it's not just growing differences in wealth and income, but growing problems with economic mobility as well. Now, all of us certainly know that there have always been some Americans for whom opportunities weren't equal. But the truth of the matter is, as I said earlier, over time, we were actually getting better at that. And in fact, if you look at the height of the bars on the chart I'm about to show you as essentially the height of the hurdles that we throw up in front of children growing up in low-income families as they try to have a better or at least easier life than the ones their parents had, as you can see, those hurdles were gradually getting lower until 1980. But look at what has happened since that time. The hurdles that we're throwing up in front of children growing up in low-income families as they try to have a better life than the ones their parents had are higher than they've been at any time since 1920. What does that tell us? That the rungs on the ladder going upward are getting further and further apart. Now, in fact, instead of being the developed country on earth where if you're born poor, you have the easiest time if you work hard, escaping the poverty that you lived in as a child, we are now tied with the UK and Italy for being the countries on earth where if you're born poor, it is hardest to escape the poverty of your birth. It is now ironically true that if you are born poor in Canada today, you are more likely to realize the American dream than if you're born poor here in the United States of America. Now, when you think about those overarching patterns, you know that at the macro level, a better and more equal education is not the only thing that needs to change in order to turn those patterns around and get our country headed back toward the principles on which it was founded. There's a lot of things that enlightened public policy could and absolutely should do to help turn those patterns around again. But at the individual level, a quality education, as you all know, is literally the only way up. As generations on generations of African American parents have taught their children, a good education is literally the only thing that nobody can ever take away from you. When you look at the overwhelming evidence about what it's going to take to turn this around, especially at the individual level, is a quality education, in particular a quality college education and a college degree. College graduates earn more. They are, as you know, less likely to be unemployed, but they also stand out in the other things that we value. They're more likely to vote, they're more likely to volunteer, they're more likely to have healthy practices or be in good or excellent health. And even though most of us know at least a few crazy college graduates, on average, college graduates are even more likely to have good mental health. Why do I tell you all that? I tell you all that simply because what that tells us is that what we do in our schools, in our colleges, is hugely, hugely important to returning this country, again, to the principles that we hold dear. There is, in other words, one road up in America today, and that road runs through us. So if what we do is critically important, especially to low-income kids and kids of color, and if how well we do it is critically important, then the question is, how are we doing? Now, when you look at the access numbers, as I think all of you know, we've made a lot of progress over the last 30 years. Every single year that you look at the data, you ask the question, how many of our high school graduates are going on to college? The numbers are going steadily upward, year on year on year. Now, in fact, if you look at high school graduates roughly 2 years out of graduating from high school, as many as 80% of them are in some form of post-secondary education. And that progress, as you can see, occurs for all racial and ethnic groups and for all economic groups as well. So college going is going up for all groups of Americans. But though college going has gone up for low-income students, and you just saw the numbers, when you look at the numbers today, they're still pretty sobering. That low-income students today are still not going on to college at the rate that high-income students did back in the 1970s. There is also, of course, a question of access to what? And when you look at the differences, especially by race and family income, in the proportion of college students who are enrolled in for-profit institutions, you see very big differences. Why should we be concerned about that? Very simply because these are the institutions from which students are least likely to graduate and most likely to accumulate often huge, huge debt. And what about success? It's not just a question of access, of course. What about graduation? When you look at graduation rates for four-year colleges. As you can see, still big gaps in the rates at which different groups of young Americans earn those degrees. That's four-year colleges. When you look at the numbers for two-year colleges, they are, of course, lower still. And when you ask that all-important question, so what about the students who aspire to a bachelor's degree but start first in a two-year college? What kind of chances do they have to end up with that degree? Only 14%. So you add all those numbers up, and what you end up with is very different rates of degree acquisition for different groups of young Americans. Essentially, for every 100 white children we start with in our kindergartens nationally, about 89 or 90 end up with a high school diploma or a GED. And of them, as you can see here, roughly 40 end up with at least a bachelor's degree. For African Americans, the bachelor's rates are roughly 1/2 those of white students. Latinos, only 1/3. And when you look at the data by family income, even more devastating differences still. If you look at American families in the top economic quartile, those are families with a household incomes about $80,000 a year or above. You look at their children around age 24 or 25, what you'll learn, as you can see here, is roughly 8 out of 10 of those young people already have at least a bachelor's degree. But if you look, on the other hand, at American families in the bottom economic quartile, those are families with the household incomes more like $30,000 a year or below. Look at their children at that same age. What you'll learn, as you can see there, is only 11% have that same bachelor's degree. And we're asked all the time, so what are you trying to suggest there? And the answer is really pretty straightforward. What the data suggest is that unless we are somehow prepared to argue that children from upper middle and upper income families are more than 7 times as smart as children of the poor, this is about as clear a signal as we have that something's going pretty seriously wrong in these two systems of ours, K-12 and higher education, because that is precisely the result we are now getting at the end of the line. More than 7 times the results for children from high-earning families than we are for those at the bottom. Now, you don't have to think about those numbers very long, the patterns underneath them, to know that a continuation of those numbers threatens the very health of our democracy. But even, frankly, for those who don't worry a lot about things like social cohesion, democratic participation, or social mobility, you got to worry about those numbers given who is growing in this country and who is not. And you add up those two patterns and you begin to understand why our longtime international lead in higher education is fast slipping away. Now, as I said earlier, and as you all know, we were the first country in the world to radically broaden access to college. And as a result of that, for decades after decade after decade, we led the world in the proportion of our workforce that had an associate's degree or higher. Now, because we got out ahead, even though a lot of other countries looked at what we did, they took that playbook and they played it out faster than we did, but because we started ahead, when you look at our overall adult population, as you can see, we still rank pretty high. We're no longer number 1, but we're, what, 4th in the developed world in the proportion of our adults who have an associate's degree or better. But when you look at our young adults, as you can see, that relative ranking drops to 11th. And I think scariest of all, we are one of only a tiny handful of countries in the developed world where today's young adults are not significantly better educated than their parents. And as I think all of you know, this is the first generation in American history where that's been true. Now, when you look at the numbers on California, you see much the same pattern. When you look at adults with a bachelor's degree across the states, as you can see, again, overall adult population, California looks better than most, right? Above the national average, not the top, but certainly above. But when you drop down and look at young adults, as you can see, that relative ranking drops. And I think most worrisome of all, when you look at degree acquisition rates in California for white students versus students of color, California has the 5th largest gap among all states. Not very encouraging news given the demographics of our state. So what's going on behind those numbers? There are a lot of folks in higher education who believe that the numbers that I just showed you are mostly a function of two things: crummy high schools and stingy and not so smart state national policy makers. It's important to say that people who believe that are not entirely wrong. They're not entirely wrong. When you look at the data on K-12, for example, what you see even today is that low-income children and children of color continue to be clustered in schools where we spend less on their education, where we expect less from them, where we actually teach them less in very deliberate ways, and perhaps worst of all, where we assign them our least experienced, least well-educated, and least effective teachers. Now, the truth of the matter is that in the last decade or so, we've made some important progress in turning those patterns around. And when you look at the national data, what you see in those 10 years is faster improvements among Latino and African American kids in 4th grade reading, as you can see here, than among other students. You see the same pattern as you can see in 8th grade math, where again, much sharper improvements in the last 10 years for students of color than for other students, and the smallest gaps we've ever had. But while we have turned the corner in our elementary and middle schools, we have not yet done that in our high schools, where the gaps today that separate students of color from white students, as you can see here in both reading and math, are as large as they were back in 1990. So when folks in higher education say at least some of those problems that I just pointed up are about poor preparation, they're not wrong. Some of this is, in fact, about inadequate preparation. They're also not wrong to suggest that the choices made by both national and state policymakers could have been better. As all of you know, the cost of going on to college is going up very, very fast for a whole variety of reasons. But it's going up faster than pretty much any other sector of our economy, faster than healthcare, faster than pharmaceuticals, certainly faster than the cost of living, faster than family income. So it's going up very fast. And the problem with that is the federal Pell Grant, which, as you know, is the most important vehicle for low-income students to afford a college education, just hasn't kept up. It used to cover the cost, roughly 75 to 80% of the cost of a 4-year education. Today, the Pell Grant struggles to pay even 30% of that cost. So those investments are not keeping up with the cost of going on to college. But here's the important thing for you to know. Not because the federal government's not spending a lot more. Their investments, frankly, in student aid have gone up every bit as fast as the cost of going on to college. So what's changed? What's changed is who those dollars are being spent on, okay? So a lot of those federal dollars are going to families not at the bottom of the economic ladder who absolutely cannot go to college without that support, but to families in the middle and families, frankly, nearer the top of the ladder. And that's being done through, as you know, quite generous tax deduction and tax credit programs, some of which actually provide the most benefits for students from wealthy families than they do to students in low-income families. And as I think you know, outside of California, which has managed to remain focused on need-based aid at the state level, the progress in other states toward more so-called merit aid and less need-based aid, that march has just kept going on and on and on. Even in these tough economic times where families desperately needed help to go on to college, a lot of states chose not to respond to that, but to provide more generous so-called merit aid instead. And I certainly don't need to tell you that while all these patterns were playing out, there's also this marked state disinvestment in higher education, which has wreaked havoc both on students and on those who work in institutions. We basically start out as a country, before all this happened, we started out as a country spending the least on the institutions that have the students with the most challenges. So that's where we started out, and then we just cut mercilessly from there. So yes, not only is student preparation part of the problem that contributes to the numbers that I showed you in the beginning, but the choices made by policymakers contribute as well. But, and this is a very, very important but, it turns out that when you look honestly at the data, what you learn is that colleges and universities themselves, through the choices that they make, actually turn out to contribute an awful lot to this drama of shrinking opportunity as well. For one thing, so I just talked to you about the shift in government dollars away from the neediest students toward less needy students. That shift has also occurred in the use of institutional aid dollars. Now, all of you know that most four-year institutions in America have student aid dollars of their own. They usually produce these pots of money by when tuition and fees increases are approved. We generally approve a little more than we would actually need. So there'll be dollars left over for student aid. And when institutional leaders say this to boards of trustees, those trustees say, well, of course, that makes sense. If our costs to students are going up, we need to have some dollars left over to help the students who can't afford to pay those costs. So it makes sense. But it turns out that those dollars have swung more rapidly away from low-income students than even state and federal dollars. Let me show you what that looks like. So in 2011, which is the most recent year for which we have comprehensive data nationally, private nonprofit colleges and universities, both public and private, together spent $21 billion on student aid. So this institutional aid stuff is not just a little chump change on the side. This is a big, big money, $21 billion. But it turns out they spent many of those billions not on students whose families desperately needed the help to attend, but on those who had no financial need whatsoever. And when you look at the shift, you can see what it looks like. These are public four-year colleges. Back in 1995, as you can see, public colleges and universities spent considerably more of their own institutional aid dollars on their poorest students than they did on their wealthiest students. But look at the numbers today. Public four-year colleges and universities are actually now spending more of their own dollars on their wealthiest students than they are on their poorest. In private institutions, the pattern is very much the same, although more intense. So back in 1995, they spent a little bit more of their own institutional aid dollars on their poorest students than they did on their wealthiest. Today, as you can see, they spend about 60% more on their wealthiest students than they do on their poorest students. So why does this matter? Why this matters is that when you look at the resulting burden on students by the income of their families, what you see is that the very families who are least able to shore the burden of paying what's left over, the costs that are left over after institutional and government aid, are actually, in fact, shoring the heaviest burden. With most of those low-income families now having to finance or come up with an amount that is roughly 75 to 76% of their family's entire annual income. So that's the burden we're placing on the backs of our lowest income families compared to a much, much smaller burden among others. So it's not all about the problems in K-12, and it is not all about the choices that government makes. It's also about the choices that we make about who to use our dollars on and who not to. Moreover, what colleges do actually turns out also to be important, not just in who comes, but in who succeeds. Now, I want to warn you in advance, I'm going to use some IPEDS data. I know you all hate IPEDS data because you know what we all know, and that is that cohort doesn't have all of your students in it. It doesn't have those who transfer, it doesn't have those who enter outside of the fall, it doesn't have your part-time students. But I will tell you this, it does have the students who are easiest for you to graduate. And so these numbers actually tell you something very important. And one of the things they tell you is that there are huge differences among institutions in the rates at which they graduate their students. When you look at the numbers overall, what you see for the country as a whole is a pretty clear pattern, right? When you look at the number of students who start full-time in a four-year institution, you ask the question, how many of them actually get their four-year degree in 4 years? The answer is fewer than 4 in 10. When you extend that up to 6 years, it gets closer to 6 in 10. And when you ask the question, well, even if they didn't graduate from the institution they started in, did they end up graduating from some other place? The answer, the numbers get up to about 2/3. So roughly, of students who start full-time in a four-year institution, roughly 2/3 of them end up with a four-year degree in 6 years. But that's the average. What you're looking at up on the screen shows the graduation rates for every institution in the country. And as you can see, they cover quite a range. Over on the right-hand side, you see a set of institutions that consistently graduate more than 85%, more than 90%, some more than 95% of their students with a degree within 6 years. Over on the left-hand side, you see a set of institutions that graduate fewer than 15%, some fewer than 10%, some actually fewer than 5% of their students with a degree within 6 years. Now, it will not surprise you to know that some of those differences can be easily explained by who those institutions serve. So those institutions over on the right-hand side are generally highly selective institutions who serve very well-prepared students, almost none of whom are low-income or students of color. Over on the left-hand side, those are mostly institutions that serve very underprepared students. They are very unselective. They have lots of students who are not prepared well for college, and most of their students are poor. And in fact, if you have all the data on institutions and students that you can get your hands on, you can find a way to explain somewhere between 70 and 80% of the overall differences among institutions in graduation rates. And that finding has convinced many people within higher education that, frankly, there's not much they can really do to improve student success rates short of just getting more well-prepared students. But it turns out that underneath those averages are very, very big differences among institutions that serve exactly the same kinds of students. And Dave mentioned this system of ours, College Results Online, and I should tell you just a brief story about why we built that system. Back in the days when we were doing all this K-16 work with local communities, the first step of that process was always for the institutions in a community to bring data to the table. So you had higher ed leaders, 2- and 4-year colleges, you had K-12 leaders from the school districts, and also community organization heads. And in those days, you'd say, bring your data to the K-12 people, and they kind of knew what to bring, right? Their data had already been out in public a lot, and they sort of knew to bring their test scores, their college-going rates, their dropout rates, and so on. When you said bring your data to the higher ed people in those years, they'd kind of look at you like, data? What do you mean data? And we said, well, why don't you just start by bringing your graduation rate data? And they'd say, okay. So I'll never forget the first time this happened was in El Paso, Texas. We sat down at the table. The K-12 people put their data out on the table, and while it was scary numbers, they were pretty familiar to most of the people in the room. And then the leader from the University of Texas, El Paso, Diana Natalicio, put the data from the university out on the table, and there was just this hush in the room. And finally, the superintendent of one of the districts said, oh my God, like, we're sending you the best kids we have, right? It's not like we're keeping them home or something. And the parents said the same thing. But you're graduating like 17% of them through with a degree in 6 years? I mean, seriously? And I remember Diana's answer. She said, well, yeah, but that's about the same that other institutions that serve the same kinds of students get. And I remember thinking at that time, I wonder if that's true. The first time you heard it, you thought, okay. The 470th time you heard basically the same explanation, you said to yourself, I really wonder if that's true now, because people in K-12 used to say that, right? I remember visiting both of my California days and elsewhere in the country. You'd visit an urban middle school, for example, and you'd see a proficiency rate of like 3%. And you'd say to the principal, oh my God, only 3% of your kids are reading at the proficient level? And in those days, the response was always the same. It was, yeah, but that's about where other middle schools, that's urban middle schools, are. Nobody in K-12 says that anymore, because we all know that there are schools that are educating very poor kids and kids of color smashingly well, and that those kids are knocking the park out of tests of all sorts and going on to college at quite high rates. So we know not to say that anymore, but in K-12, in higher ed, people were still saying that. So we decided to build college results online to answer that question. That is, if you took all the things that you could know quantitatively about institutions and you put them into peer groups based on that, would they all actually graduate the same numbers of students? And what we learned is, just as is true in K-12, no. The answer is no. That in every category of institution, there are some institutions that serve exactly the same kinds of students with exactly the same kinds of resources and get wildly better results. So let me just give you a couple of examples of what the data tell you. These are institutions that you would recognize. These are highly selective research universities that serve very well-prepared students, very few of whom are low-income or students of color. These are mostly flagship institutions. They have very clear missions. And in fact, the missions of all of these institutions read roughly the same. But though they serve essentially the same kinds of students with essentially the same kinds of resources, as you can see, they do not get the same results. From Penn State University, that despite all of its other problems, seems to manage to graduate most of its students with a degree in 6 years, to places like University of Minnesota and Purdue that serve exactly the same kinds of students, but get far fewer through with a degree in 6 years. And when you look at their numbers for underrepresented students, even more different, right? University of Minnesota, 44%, Penn State, 74%. So similar institutions, very similar students, not so similar in terms of student outcomes. These are two other research universities, again, have much in common in terms of size, in terms of selectivity and preparation of students, in terms of percent of students who are Pell, percent of students who are students of color. But though these institutions, again, have much in common, that does not include their graduation rates. And again, graduation rate gaps of 12, 13, 14, 15%, those are actually hundreds of students' lives underneath that, right? So these are not just numbers, these are lives. And look at this. At Florida State University, underrepresented minority students graduated almost the same rate. In fact, their African-American students at Florida State actually graduate at rates higher than their white students. But very different when you look at University of Arizona, with underrepresented students graduating at rates significantly lower than those white students. But it's not just research universities. These are master's institutions that also have much in common in terms of size, in terms of selectivity, in terms of the number of low-income students they serve. But again, though they have much in common, that does not include their graduation rates, which are quite different, though they serve much the same kinds of students. You see that in the historically black college sector as well. These are public historically black institutions, very small in size. They serve mostly very underprepared students, the vast majority of whom are poor. But though they have the same missions, roughly the same kinds of resources, as you can see, the results are quite different. From Elizabeth City State University in New Jersey, that consistently has the highest graduation rates of any public historically black college, to Coppin State in Maryland, that serves exactly the same kinds of students, but with considerably less success. Similar institutions, similar students, wildly different results. It is also true, I just showed you static results, it is also true that some institutions are really beginning to focus on their underrepresented students in terms of student success and are making very big and very fast progress. Some have entirely closed the gaps that separate their both Latino and white students and their African American and white students. San Diego State University is one of those. When you look at the biggest gainers for black students, Cal Poly Pomona, San Jose State, San Francisco State are also among the fastest gainers in the country. And when you look at institutions where there are no longer any graduation rate gaps between their black students and white students, what you learn is there's one right here in California that actually is in that club as well. People said, you'd never succeed in doing that. And I remember when University of Maryland, Baltimore County crossed that line, they got all this attention because they were the first university in the country to have a higher graduation rate for black students than they did for white students. But look at the numbers now. Look at the numbers now. Telling us what? Telling us that when we really focus on these things, we can make progress. So yes, I hope the message is clear here. Yes, we still have to focus on improving our K-12 schools, especially those that serve concentrations of low-income kids and kids of color, because student preparation is still the strongest predictor of college success. And yes, government has to make better choices as well, but I hope the message also comes clear here that what we do in higher education also has major effects too. The choices that we make every day in what to prioritize and how to use our resources and how to use our energy and what to expect, those choices make a very big difference as well. And that includes here in the CSU. When you look at progress over time here, what you see is that in part as a result of the graduation rate initiative, you've seen as a system really nice improvements in student success. But you haven't yet seen as a system the declining gaps that they have in other places. So one of the real questions for you is how to accelerate progress in student success among your underrepresented students. I think the other question for you to think about is, when you look, this is college results, you can go look at this more and play with it later. When you look at Cal State Long Beach compared to its peers, and again, these are stored as statistical peers, it's the kind of best a system can do. What you see is when you look at your six-year graduation rate, you look really quite good compared to your peers. Not the very top, but you're very close to the top. When you look at your four-year graduation rates, we're almost at the bottom of your peers. And the five-year rates look a little better, but not so much. So one of the questions that I think you'll want to ask, given the consequences to students, is can you move more from the 6-year to the 5-year and the 5-year to the 4-year, both freeing up places for other students and also getting students out into the world more rapidly. Now we're kind of out of time, so I'm just going to go just really, really quickly for about 2 or 3 more minutes on sort of what are the top line lessons from the fastest gainers. And I'm going to do that in the hope that you can look at the details of this later on. But the first lesson really is improving student success is not mostly about programs, right? Programs help, but it's really mostly about an institution-wide culture that values success. And presidential leadership and leadership from the provost is hugely important, but the institutions that are really moving the needle engage departments, engage faculty in owning these challenges, and view faculty in particular not as problems to be solved, but as problem solvers in this process. So it's really about an institution-wide effort to value and prioritize student success. Number 2, and you know this because there's been a lot of nice work here over the years at Cal State Long Beach, it's about using data, it's about examining data, it's about cutting it more and more finely to look for the lessons that it tells you about where you've got blockages to student success and where you don't. So it's about really infusing the use of data throughout the institution. And again, there's lots of stories about these. These are virtually all of the institutions, though, that when you dig into what they did to get where they got, it is always about dicing the data, looking at it ever more closely, trying to figure out who to focus on next, what worked and what didn't, and move on. So it's really about lots of data. And it's very important, by the way, to get beyond the kind of old ways of looking at data. People used to say, well, I'm really trying to get my 6-year graduation rate up. But every time I get the new data, I just realize we didn't do it. And I'm thinking, you do not change your 6-year graduation rate numbers by looking at your 6-year graduation rate numbers. By the time you get those numbers, those are an autopsy, right? You can't do it. You move those numbers by looking at what happens not just in the first semester, but in the first week of school, in the second week, in the 5th week. You're constantly looking at the numbers and acting when students fall off track. So it's really, really about not just focusing on the simple things like how many students come back a second year, how many came back with the credits they need to be sophomores. When you look at places like Georgia State that really moved the needle in terms of graduation rates, their retention numbers were roughly the same. What changed over time is the number of students who came back with the 30 credits to be a sophomore, right? So those things, unit accumulation turns out to matter way more than just coming back. One of the other things that institutions learn when they dig into their data and start listening to their students is that the pathways that you and I think are so obvious, you know, if you're going to study this, it's pretty obvious what courses you take in your freshman year, your sophomore year, your junior year, and your senior year. It may be obvious to us. It is not obvious to the bulk of our students. So the institutions that are really moving the needle are beginning to create academic maps, right, that actually make it much more clear to students the courses they need to take, and some of them are even moving beyond that to do default programming of students into those courses. So they get the courses they need, so they stay on a path wherever possible to accumulate 15 units a semester, and they don't get so lost in the curriculum. So this academic maps, the use of meta majors for students who haven't quite decided, but you want them not to lose momentum, and the meta majors can do that. Number 4, virtually all the institutions that have really moved the needle have taken on student success in their introductory and developmental courses. Why do they do that? Because when they look at their data, what they realize is that while most undergraduate institutions offer somewhere around 2,000 undergraduate courses, there are about 35 of those courses that explain both the lion's share of the enrollment credits and the lion's share of failures. And so you want to understand what's going on in those courses and begin to engage the faculty in redesigning those courses with student success as a real goal, right? So it's about understanding which courses are creating the problems and beginning to make sure we're redesigning those in ways that prioritize student learning, that keep the standards high, but helps students to meet those standards. Sorry, there's lots of data here. Where else can the successful data take you? What we're learning from successful institutions is that most of them do the stuff that we all do. They know what works from their institutional research shops and from their advisors. They advise students to do those things. The institutions that are really moving the needle, though, understand that if you give students advice, they might do it, but they probably won't, or at least significant numbers won't, so make them do it. And it turns out that even your buddies at San Diego State, that's exactly what they did. And when you ask them, what's the real story of the movement, especially in their Latino success numbers at San Diego State, they will say it's about making services more coherent, and it's about requiring students to do the things that we know work. Finally, institutions that are really moving the needle for students never give up on students. One of the things we know from lots and lots of research is that whether you're talking about high school dropouts or those who leave college without a degree, that many of the students who leave regret that decision within sometimes 5 minutes of leaving. But nobody actually asked them to come back. And one of the things that we learned, starting with the University of New Mexico maybe a decade ago, is that if you actually reach back out to those students, and you can get their names typically for about $1.70 per name in this era of internet bill collecting, and you invite them to come back and complete their degrees. You give them a quick degree audit. You give them a concierge service to make sure they get the courses they need. You can turn, as University of New Mexico did, 3,000 leavers into more than 2,000 degrees, okay? So beginning to think about those who left as opportunities to bring back, as opposed to those just as dropouts, then is a way to really begin to affect real lives. Because as you know, being out there without a degree today is not a good thing in this economy. So those overtures, bringing students back, can markedly impact their life chances. Now, as you probably gathered, even this very fast rush through the data, these are not mostly big revolutionary changes. These are mostly about common sense, and they're mostly about small incremental changes well implemented. And it turns out that when you focus there, on making small changes over time and really doing that well, what you begin to see is radical changes and improvements in your student success rates. And that is something that with your track record, and you've already shown much of what can be done in the next few years, I expect you to prove even more this basic bottom line, that what we do matters, that yes, the preparation levels of our students matter, yes, their poverty matters, but when we do our job in the best way we can, it matters a lot less, and we can get students who nobody else could through with the degree that they need. Thank you so much for your time.
Wow. Those of you who haven't heard Katie before, you see why we find this powerful, and I'm not sure where else you can hear this combination of national perspective and nuanced understanding of the data and passion. It's just remarkable. Katie, thank you so much. Please give her another round of applause. Now, you've looked at national data and California data. Let's take a few minutes and look at our data. I guess I have the slide clicker, haven't I, here? Okay. So, this is the long time series of Cal State Long Beach 6-year graduation rate. Study that for a moment. So, if you remember Katie's distribution of graduation rates, on the left-hand side of our graph, we were on the left-hand side of her distribution. Not quite all the way to the bottom, but pretty close. And in the most recent data that we have, we're on the right-hand side of the distribution, not all the way to the top. But so we've moved a tremendous amount on that distribution of rates. And notice that we've done this with entering SAT scores that were flat, increasing diversity, and increasing student poverty. None of the things that are associated with student characteristics changed in the direction that would have helped us achieve that during that period of time. So this is not about selectivity. There's one slight exception to that in this graph that I can show you, but it's primarily about what the institution has done. And now it's time to double back on a couple of introductions. So if we look at the period in here, the late 90s, an interesting thing happened in about, I think it was 98. WASC came for its accreditation visit. Our graduation rates were, at that time, we would have been reporting this rate right here, about 32%. WASC never noticed. WASC, that is not mentioned in the accreditation report that we received at that point in time. Now, if WASC were to visit and that were the situation, you bet that would be there. The difference is Katie, having blown the lid off of college completion with the public database, College Results Online. Now this is on the accreditation and other agendas, still not sufficiently in my view. But also in this late 90s period, the period subsequent to that visit, around that time, the university leadership was really not paying any attention to this issue, really not even aware. I don't think, I doubt if the leadership could have told you what our graduation rate was at that point in time, frankly. But there were a couple people who were aware of that. And I am delighted to say that they have come back this morning to join us. Marilee, would you, let's recognize Marilee Samuels. I was going to ask her to stand, but maybe not. Marilee was the longtime director of the Advising Center and a legendary advocate for student success at a time when she really didn't have the support of her own bosses, frankly. I hope I'm not talking too out of school here. To do that, but really tried to bring the campus culture along in a way to support students, and was doing that in a way that I really have deep respect for, because it was not a popular thing to do at that time. And sitting next to her is Susie Black. So during some round of budget cuts, I inherited supervising this center, and as I got to know Marilee and Susie, one of the things I learned is that Susie, after 5 o'clock on her own time, was calling students who had accumulated a lot of credits but hadn't graduated, and getting them back on campus and advising them about what courses they needed to finish that degree. And she called it Graduation Greenlight, as I recall. And she was bringing back quite a few students. And when I heard this, and I heard that this was not part of her day job, but this was something that she was doing on her own time, I said, Susie, let's put this in your day job. And so working with Marilee and others, we managed to elevate the status of it. And Susie, you would be proud to know that we went from that germ of an idea to the expansion of those efforts that occurred while you were here. And Susie then moved on to someplace in Canada, I forget. But now proactive advising has become a major component of what we do, and now we're moving into electronic proactive advising. So, but you were the person who first really put that on our radar, that concept of proactive advising. So thank you very much. Could I have one more round of applause for Marilee and Susie? The true unsung heroes, the pioneers of student success on our campus. So the period that you see boxed up there is the period since 2005. And the reason why that is boxed is because in 2005, Education Trust, Katie's organization, and the American Association of State Colleges and Universities sponsored a national study of institutions that were high-performing with low-income and underrepresented students. Elizabeth City was up here, by the way. That was the place where I led a team to visit Elizabeth City. Lynn Mahoney led a team to a different place. I didn't know her at that time, but then a few years later she came here. So the period from 2005 is the period inspired by that study, because I came back fired up about that, and a couple of years later Lynn joined our campus and was pretty fired up about that. And so you can see we were languishing in the years prior to that, but you can also see the strength of our gains in that period of time. So Katie deserves a hand of some credit for inspiring us to begin to make those changes, which, again, were not much on the institutional leadership radar at that point in time. This is the graph for underrepresented students. So you can see that we have gains there, but we also have gaps that remain, and this is our challenge. It's interesting that California seems characterized by an inability to tackle the gaps, and we need to redouble our efforts on that. This is another graph. I wonder if anybody can guess what this is. Anybody want to hazard a guess? This is the graduation rate for the students who are identified as having remedial needs when they come in the door. This is the group of students that I've been told many times by lots of people we shouldn't admit to the campus because they can't learn. You can see that in the most recent year, the graduation rate for that group of students is just 1 year behind the graduation rate for all students, and that's about the way it's been tracking. We've put in place some measures that are aimed at the least prepared students, the beach learning community being one of our most significant efforts in that regard, and we can see results from this. So again, I encourage us not to accept the conventional wisdom that this group should be denied access to higher education, because I think these data prove that wrong. First-year retention. We have very high first-year retention as a campus, nearly 90%. For some reason, that's characteristic of California schools, by the way, not just our university, but you can also see that we've made recent gains in this important metric. Even though the scale here is 83 to 90, we're making some gains there too. This is just a close-up of our 6-year graduation rate in that last period since '05. You can see it's going up. And some of the things that we've done with admissions and with e-advising haven't really even had a chance to affect these rates. And so I'm fairly confident we'll see some continued gains in this regard. So I'm very proud of the campus for that. But this is basically what got us the award. This is the figure for transfers, and also the box is the same period. You can see the gains here are not quite as dramatic, but you can see the trend is also in the right direction. This probably will be especially affected by our new admissions. I do expect to see some real gains here as time passes and the new admissions play a role in that. So a little bit of a summary: a 32% gain in our 6-year rate, a 25% in the 8-year rate. A few students do graduate in 8 years who don't graduate in 6, so it's worth tracking that. A 24% gain in the 3-year retention rate. Remedial students, as I said, graduating at a rate that's just 1 year behind all students. And another interesting fact is that since 2005, our actual rates have exceeded our predicted rates. And I think that's evidence that the efforts we're making, since we're predicting from the past, the continued efforts that we're making are likely to lead to additional gains in the future. So I'm very proud of the campus for that. You can see some gains in transfer rates, 20% in the 4-year rate. So how many students have benefited from this? Again, just looking in that 05 period, the answer is about 3,500 students have either graduated or on track to graduate who would not have been at the rates that we had in 2005. And so about 2,400 of those were freshmen, 1,200 transfers, about 2,600 have already graduated, and about 1,300 students are underrepresented students who've graduated as a result of the efforts that led to this award. And even if we don't make any other additional gains, we're currently succeeding at a rate that's about 800 students per year above where we were in 2005. I do expect additional gains, but that's a significant improvement. This is a wonderful graph that Dushi did. He's sitting here somewhere, and I wanted to share this with you just because it's so cool. But you can see that the size of the bubbles shows you, this is underrepresented versus non-underrepresented students, and you can see that the size of the bubbles represents the numbers of students being graduated, and then the slope represents the trend. You can see a bit about the growth in the numbers of underrepresented students in the bottom green graph from 549 to 1,063, so doubling the numbers of underrepresented students graduated in that time frame. Thanks, Dushi. He's going to show me how to do that. I won't be able to do that myself. But gaps continue to be our concern. So since '03, non-underrepresented students have improved at a rate of about 2.5% a year, and underrepresented students at a slightly lower rate of 2.3% a year. So with that trend, gaps will increase rather than decrease, and so we need to give that due attention. You do find that gaps close a little bit after the 6-year graduation rate from 11% to 8.6%, suggesting that some of the gap is time to degree as opposed to ultimate achievement. The transfer gap is almost non-existent, and there's something that we need to learn from that. Our gaps are almost altogether from entering freshmen and almost hardly at all from transfer students, so there's a lesson to be unpacked there. So we've made some great strides. Many students have graduated. All groups of students have graduated, including remedial students, but the gaps remain a concern for us. And we need to focus on that as well as additional gains. But it is very useful to understand that these gains were made at a time, and this is the part that people from around the country just can't understand, or even my fellow CSUs can't understand. When diversity increased, when student poverty increased, when academic qualifications stayed absolutely flat, and our budgets were slashed by millions and millions of dollars. Focus, focus, focus. So we managed to stay focused during that period of time, and we got some results from doing that. So I want to express my appreciation to all of you who've contributed to these gains. Please give yourselves a round of applause. And now I'm delighted to introduce our newest Vice President, Carmen Taylor.
Wow. Raise your hands if you've been data fed. Well, I'm honored to be on the platform with such esteemed guests. We heard from our mayor earlier and Dr. Katie Haycott. That was really a joy to review the rich profile of data and challenges that still lie ahead. What we are really celebrating this award is our ability to work as a team in providing our students quality learning and campus life experiences. This award also celebrates how the university has managed to move the dial to where we are. Our institution is more student-centered. And Provost Dow's idea to create a Student Success Center at the campus falls right in line with our renewed, enhanced focus, mission, and planning. When I look at the title of the award, Excellence and Innovation for Student Success and College Completion, I know, based on all the information presented here this morning, that the evidence shows that 6-year graduation rates to be up in every category, Pell eligible, non-Pell, underrepresented, non-underrepresented. We are succeeding, which leads to our second success and challenge, innovation. Many of these things are already happening. You've heard quite a bit this morning, but I wanted to look at a couple of personal examples. But first, let's review the record. As I scroll down the list for the criteria for our proposal that was submitted for the award, it lists leadership commitment to provide resources for scheduled classes, essential student support despite budget cuts, which Provost Dow just pointed out, identification of low completion courses, early assessment of learning disabilities, strategies for men's success initiatives, and creating an infrastructure that requires cross-campus participation and accountability. Well, that said a lot to me. I thought cross-campus participation and accountability. That's a mouthful. So let's review some of the evidence, some of the personal stories. The low completion course project, spearheaded by Terry Allen and her team. The process included a review of low completion courses across the colleges. 2 examples include Biology 208, Chemistry 111A. The completion rates for which improved from 50 to 80% in just a few years of the project. I just thought that was monumental as a new person here on the campus. The TRIO programs under the leadership of Charity Bowles and her team. These programs serve about 3,500 students annually with a $2.8 million budget. They offer extensive services in the areas of academic, career, personal advisement, financial aid assistance, cultural enrichment, and mentoring to low-income, first-generation, displaced, and disabled students. They consistently have strong retention and graduation rates. The one-year retention rate stands at 97%, and 99% of the population is in good academic standing. The 6-year graduation rate is 77.5%, and the 4-year graduation rate for transfer students is 87%, which is well above the national averages, as we heard this morning. Okay, another example. The University Center for Undergraduate Advising has some very innovative programs that directly impact retention and graduation, including lots of first-year seminars. DeWan Jackson and her team have formed strong partnerships, again, across the university to support students who are not college-ready in areas of English and math. This support, known as the Beach Learning Community, supports approximately 1,700 students annually and provides guidance to help students navigate their first and second years of enrollment. Beach Learning Community students from 2013 cohort had an 84.2% one-year retention rate, which was a great improvement over the 71% retention rate before the community was established. All of these programs transcend ownership and boundaries and include elements of effective communication, coordination, and teamwork across the university. They are representative of a learning community that works together, stays together, and one that is clearly student-centered. However, I challenge us to be not only student-centered, but also learning-centered. We all know that student learning goes far beyond the realm of the classroom and credit-bearing courses. As a campus community, we need to commit to reviewing and changing some of those traditional practices in and out of the classroom. We need to engage in new paradigms of learning, and only then can we become truly learner-centered. As President Connolly stated, a national motto at the beach. Cal State Long Beach is an outstanding example of what public higher education can and should be. I am a product of public education. First generation, low income, inner city Chicago. I understand it. And I am extremely excited to be a part of such an innovative and dynamic team here at this university. Thank you, Provost Dow, for paving the way to success into the 21st century. Some schools have not yet got there. And thank you, President Connolly, and each and every one of you in the audience for your commitment and your partnerships and for being a part of this extraordinary team. After all, teamwork makes the dream work, right? Say it again. Teamwork makes the dream work. That's my new theme here. Every time I go to a different institution, I create themes based on my experiences, and that's what I'm experiencing now here. So I thank you for that. My learning comments came from Learning Reconsidered 2. So it's been a while since I read this book, but I invite you to pick that back up because it has a lot of great references for a learning community. And I particularly want to thank Professor Ana Ortiz. Last week she did a workshop for my divisional leaders that was just outstanding on student learning development and helped me to frame my comments today. So thank you, and I know we'll continue to do good work as a team.
Thank you, Carmen. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our president, Jane Connolly, who will share with us her thoughts about student success. President Connolly.
Well, thank you, Provost Dowell, and certainly Katie Haycock for being with us, and Vice President Taylor for teamwork makes the dream work. I wish I would have thought of that. What is it with, I just need better something. You need to help me with stuff like that. Well, I'm so much, all the important stuff has already been said. So I won't spend too long with you, except to say that even if the American dream is fading, harder to get at, I want you to know it remains my guiding energy. Because this is really what made us great as a people, as a nation. And I don't think it's worth, you know, we can't be in charge of the whole nation, obviously, or the whole world. That is, learn from our playbook, and they're spending lots more money on higher education than we are, even though we're spending tons, you know. But we can, in our world, and for our students, I think, make it real. And so when what gets me up every morning is exactly that. You know, there will be 3,000 more students, 800 more, 5,000 more who in fact will enter our world, our civic world, our artistic world, our elected officials, as we saw with the mayor this morning, better prepared. In the history of our university, I can see by looking at the graphs that sometimes we didn't have our eye on that prize for our students. And I certainly thank once again our pioneers in that, people I haven't had a chance to meet until this morning. And also, of course, the leadership of the deans and the provost, and certainly the collaboration of our faculty and our student services professionals. Because teamwork makes the dream work, but you got to have the right people. You can't just have people dreaming, you have to have people who can implement, right? And I think for too long and at too many universities, and certainly there's certainly elements still here, we've lived in silos. We've thought, but this is what I do. I don't know what they do, or we haven't really appreciated what they do, And I certainly have been at universities where, well, just because of Vice President Taylor's comments, where the chasm between student affairs and academic affairs was miles wide. And people liked it that way, because then they had their own kingdoms to rule. But I know that is not good for our students, because our students don't experience the world that way. They don't experience a world that's their academic, here's my academic side, and here's the rest of my world. They experience one world. And to the extent that we can make that one world, each element that we offer them overlap, be synergistic, build on the other, send a message that you have got to work hard. You're a top third of the population that we took, but we're here to help you do it. And we're all going to be working with your success as the center of what we do. And in a strange way, I think this metric, and maybe the data show this metric is somewhat new for us to consider every day. My career has often been at places where the metrics were more about how many students we turned down than how many we took. It was more about their SAT scores incoming than how many graduated. It was much more about how many research papers I published than how many students I helped graduate. These are all important. It's all important stuff. But we are now, and we are now embracing, and we have embraced for the last several years, thanks to, again, our pioneers and our current leadership, this new metric. And I think, it's not a comfortable one. because the comfortable position is to look at the variance that can be accounted for by student preparation, as Dr. Haycock mentioned. There's a school superintendent in Santa Barbara who used to share a poem, and it's too long to share with you, but it essentially was, who do we get to blame? Who do we get to blame? Well, let's blame the parents because they didn't read to them. Let's blame the kindergarten teacher because she didn't, or he didn't get the alphabet done. And in my career as a psychologist working in and around schools, that was one of the first things I realized, that every teacher blamed the teacher before. Now, I don't know if maybe that's over. Oh, here's Superintendent Steinhauser's here, so he can tell us. Do you know that poem? That gets, we can play that blame game, and we like to do it to others. There's a concept in psychology called the basic attributional error, and it means that we look at others and we know it's their fault when they can't do it. But we look at ourselves and we say, oh, well, that was just a tough moment. That was, that's not really me, And I think the blame game is built on the kind of attributional error, that we like to look and see the weaknesses in others and not look and see that we may have more responsibility than we wish. But it's not a comfortable place to be. It's not a comfortable place to be to say we're a university built on access as well as excellence. Every place I've been before was built on excellence, not on access. But embracing both of those things, that's rocket science to me. Now, I know our scientists are here and they may disagree. I'm all dressed up because I'm going to Washington, so I have all these layers of stuff that I'm getting ready for 19 degrees, okay? It's not a comfortable place to be. And I'm very taken, and have seen this in other organizational research findings. I'm very taken with the veracity of the fact that it takes leadership, it takes a commitment to this to make it happen. But it's not just talking about it, although that's part of it. Like today, let's celebrate our success. We're talking about it, and so we try to build up a set of values. But it's also looking for ways to support those who are actually doing it every day. It's not just enough to say, do it. It's about how do we support people to do it. And of course, that's another part of where partnership and the whole village, the whole community has to be involved. You must tell me, you must tell the provost, you must tell your department chairs, your deans, your vice presidents what it takes, what kind of buildings, what kind of Wi-Fi access, what kind of air conditioning. I mean, everything makes a difference, but we need to be talking about that all the time. What kind of workload can a faculty handle when they're dealing with large numbers of students who may need that extra mentoring, that extra attention? These are all things that need to be on the table as we talk. They're not off the table. Nobody is saying, and I hope you will never hear me say, that's your job. It's our job. And we need to be talking openly about what it really takes to do that. And I know it takes an inspired faculty and a staff with an unwavering commitment to the data, but also to remember that the data are the people, as was mentioned several times. These are our students' lives. We can dismiss this effort by focusing too much just on timely graduation. I'm completely focused on timely graduation. But let's remember what creates timely graduation. It's the high-impact practices that you all are doing, that Vice President Taylor mentioned. You are redesigning your courses. We're putting in supports for students across the board in terms of their advising, both E and human advising. And by the way, all the research or all the anecdotes I've heard so far about e-advising is that you need more human advisors when you have e-advising, because students come to you because they're, of course the advisors are reaching out to the students. So as this program rolls out, I know we'll have that important hybrid experience for students. And it also takes another uncomfortable thing, and I find it uncomfortable in a personal way, that we have to keep challenging ourselves to what the next step is. Are actually at 65%, 6-year graduation, and I think our years or our enrollment time is about 5.2 years is the average time. You know, that's not bad, so it's easy to say that's not bad. But some of you perhaps read the book From Good to Great, and you know, I use that book to remember that's not bad, it's just not good enough when we're talking about real students whose lives are affected by their access to class, to classes, to advisement, to the kind of supports that Carmen Taylor's group offers in terms of emergency loans and counseling and health and feeding youngsters. I was thinking the other day that I'm old enough, I'm really old, I'm old enough to remember, well, I'll tell you about my twin sister. So my twin is a teacher in New York City and has been a principal and is now back in the high school classroom as a history teacher. And I always think of her as, over the years, she would say, oh God, now the kids aren't speaking English, so I guess I have to do this. And she would come up with something. And then she'd say, I have students in my class that are living in their cars. I guess I better do this. You know, or I have all my students, 98% of my students are from the Dominican Republic, and they're going back and forth. They're not here all the time. They're missing a lot of classes. Now I better do this. And so all these years, she said, what do I have to do to make a difference? And when she was principal of high schools in New York, and she wouldn't believe I was telling this story because she never thinks I pay attention. But when she was principal in the Upper West Side, and especially in this area of overwhelmingly recent immigrants from the Dominican Republic, 98% of her kids were accepted in college. And that's because she did what I think Dr. Haycock mentioned. She didn't say, oh, they're not ready. And I tell you, I met these kids. I mean, they were just, as freshmen, they were just, who am I, where am I, why am I here? That kind of thing. But by seniors, they knew why they were here. And, you know, it was her team of teachers. And I am constantly inspired by that. I'm also inspired by the elaboration of partnership that the Vice President mentioned. We benefit from the Long Beach College Promise, with our strong partnership with our Long Beach Unified School District, and again, welcome Superintendent Steinhauser, with our Long Beach City College partnership. This, and with our new partnership with the city, with Mayor Garcia at the helm. This is unusual, unprecedented in the United States. When I was at Santa Barbara, I tried to get one of these things going, and I was never as successful as I wished. This is something we can really focus on, build on, and continue to improve, because we're not there yet. You see our achievement and our opportunity, I like to call them opportunity gaps that we offer students, but I know Superintendent Steinhauser and I met just a few days ago, and we committed that it's really the focus on those underrepresented students that really deserves our joint attention now. So let me end, because I think we're almost out of time, and I'm sure there's some comments and questions, but with just two messages. One is thank you for all you've done. Thank you so much, and congratulations. This was a big deal. You know, I traveled all the way to Washington, and then I was afraid I would have to carry it back. But I was willing to carry it back because it's a big deal. We're one of 2 in the United States of America who got this award. This is not small stuff. And then the uncomfortable truth that we have to get an award like this every year now, because, you know, who wouldn't want like 10 or 12 of these, you know, across the thing. But thank you very much. Congratulations, Provost Dell, and all those who preceded, and all of our Vice President division areas that have their eyes absolutely on what students need. And thank you, faculty and staff. And Let's keep talking about how to make it work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Connolly. I just want to, in closing, say that I'm very proud of this campus. I'm proud to be part of something with this kind of commitment, and I appreciate all that all of you have done, both our CSULB and our other partners have done to contribute to these gains, and let's keep moving. And Katie, thank you for an amazing presentation, just amazing. Thank you to our pioneers. Thank you to our leadership. It really, we can all be proud. Dream Team is really, I think, we can all feel that we're part of a dream team. So thank you all for a good morning. I appreciate it, and have a great rest of the day.